There's no denying that Pixar is one of the greatest animation studios of all time. Since the release of Toy Story in 1995, the company has released films that have often been ranked as some of the greatest animated movies ever made. Though with that said, they're not a flawless studio, as they have put out some movies that audiences feel just weren't their best. The reason I bring this up is because I wanted to go in detail about what is often called one of their weaker efforts, The Good Dinosaur. This is one of those films that really fascinates me, as it's a film that had a lot of promise to it, but sort of let a lot of audiences down in a way. I don't think this is a bad film per se, but I don't think it's a particularly good one either, as it has both Pixar's best scenes in a movie, as well as their worst. Bottom line, this film is kind of a mess. In any case, I wanted to closely examine the movie and show how it worked in some areas, failed in others, and also see how the film could have been improved. So let's get started off by showing how I found out about the film. As a younger boy, I always loved searching the internet for details on Pixar's future films and reading articles about the early production of their movies like Brave and Coco. And it was through this process that made me come across Pixar's then untitled film about dinosaurs, which was originally directed by Up co-director Bob Peterson and was initially supposed to be released in 2014. The film's plot about a dinosaur and a young cave boy going on a grand adventure really intrigued me. In fact, I'll even go as far as admitting that I was more excited for seeing this movie than I was Inside Out. However, what I didn't know was that the film was going through some production difficulties, which suddenly came to light after the D23 conference in 2013. Eventually, Peterson was replaced as director by Peter Sohn, the director of the short Partly Cloudy, as well as having the entire story going through a complete overhaul. Not only that, the film was bumped to a Thanksgiving 2015 release date, and the entire cast, with the exception of Frances McDormand, was even replaced. Though keep in mind, this was not the first Pixar movie to have to go through an overhaul during production, as movies like Toy Story 2 and Ratatouille were also notable for going through production problems, and also had its original directors replaced. When Thanksgiving rolled around, I saw the movie and remember moderately enjoying it. I then wrote a moderately positive review on the film, gave it a 7 out of 10, and moved on. 2 years passed, and I had all but moved on from the film when something drew me back into rewatching it. I wanted to view the film again through fresh eyes, hoping that I may like it or even love it. Upon rewatch, however, I then began to see more of the film's problems, some of which I didn't catch on the first viewing, and some of them major ones. While I still don't think the movie is bad overall, I now saw it as a pretty flawed film in general. So with that said, let's go over the problems in depth. One thing that typically gets a lot of complaints from people regarding the film is the character designs. While the film's realistic backgrounds have received praise from both critics and audiences alike, the character designs did not, with the general complaint being that they looked too cartoony and didn't match the film's realistic landscapes. I do agree that the two elements don't match each other at all, and that it can be very distracting at times, but I'll try to defend it just a touch, as I don't think it's the worst element of the film. Most computer animated dinosaur movies, like Dinosaur and Walking with Dinosaurs, used actual live-action footage for its backgrounds, and attempted to make their dinosaurs look realistic as possible, which resulted in them looking a little dated as years went on. With this film, I think that Pixar wanted to make its dinosaur models look more like a cartoon, so that they could hopefully make the models a little more timeless, as realistic CGI can become dated in a matter of a few years. Though, do I like the decision as a whole? No. I still think the models don't match with the backgrounds at all, and feel that they would have been better in another movie like Inside Out. And even though I do find it kind of unfair comparing Inside Out to The Good Dinosaur, I couldn't help but notice similarities between both film stories. Both of them have characters that are accidentally separated from their homes, and both have to get there in a matter of time, while coming across strange and colorful detours. They both have characters that start off as enemies, then become friends, characters that you sadly say goodbye to, and both end on a seemingly happy note. Though, why did something like Inside Out work and The Good Dinosaur didn't? One reason to why this could be is because even though both have stories that have been done in similar ways in the past, Inside Out was able to stand on its own without the need to be compared to others, where The Good Dinosaur sadly couldn't. Not only that, the film's tone couldn't really keep its balance, as it goes from heavy and dark moments like the pterodactyls eating a critter alive, to light and goofy kid fluff with T-Rexes talking about stuff you hear from an elementary school counselor in only a few minutes.
Smash! Boundaries? This is my personal bubble.
Nah, that ain't your bubble. This is your bubble!
I like seeing both light and dark in animated movies, but there always needs to be a good balance in order for it to work, and the ones in this film just didn't do it for me, as they sometimes come out of nowhere and even at times left a bad taste in my mouth. Another problem that really bothered me in the movie was the character of Arlo, who, in my mind, is one of Pixar's worst protagonists to date.
Whatever you do.
Okay, not the worst, but he still wasn't good either. To sum it up, he was both annoying and honestly pretty forgettable as a character. There wasn't really a lot to know about him, and the only thing I could take away from him was the fact that he was a coward who at the end of the film would later conquer his fears, though the word coward might be an understatement, as he really does get afraid and scream a lot during the film. Okay, that's enough. Let's move on. He also doesn't stand out amongst a sea of colorful characters like Spot, a pet collecting Triceratops played by the director himself, as well as a T-Rex family played by A.J. Buckley and a Paquin and Sam Elliott. These were easily the best characters in the film and had an interesting side to them, but with the exception of Spot, they're not on screen a lot and are not even in the film for about 10 minutes. It also kind of frustrates me that Pixar went for this version of Arlo compared to his original version created by Peterson. Though the character would have been older and more of an outcast, he also would have had a little more personality given to him, as he was supposed to have been a bug collector, and it would have been through this process where he would discover Spot, initially mistaking him for a beetle, comparing it to the final film where he first encounters him by trapping him in a net. Speaking of the story, it's actually where most of my problems with the film come from, particularly the script written by Meg LaFave, who had just finished co-writing the soon-to-be Oscar-nominated screenplay for Inside Out. Throughout the film, I was repeatedly taken aback by certain scenes, and particularly the cliché dialogue. Most of the lines said in the movie were some that I heard in other movies, and hearing them being repeated again and again kind of drove me crazy.
And then they attacked.
You're gonna be okay.
Tell Mama I love her. I see a light.
I'll go get help.
Oh, you should see your face. Oh.
I should've known. Always gotta mess me up.
The best scenes in the movie were the ones that had very little to no dialogue, including a small scene where Arlo sees his foot is freed, a scene where he explains family to Spot, and the scene where he lets him go. All these scenes were beautifully done, and I really got emotional watching them, though I later found myself asking this question by the end of the film. Why wasn't this a visual movie? I mean, Pixar has by now demonstrated that they know how to do visual storytelling, as seen in movies like Up and WALL-E, a film that's first 40 minutes are mostly comprised of visual storytelling and involve very little dialogue. Though, simply removing the dialogue wouldn't fix everything, as I still feel that certain scenes that weren't really needed for the film, including a scene where Arlo talks to the image of his father about Spot,
Spot needs me.
as well as weird moments like the aforementioned drug reference scene, could be cut out entirely and really help benefit the film and pick up the film's sometimes slow pace, and even giving more screen time to characters like the T-Rexes also could have helped improve the film in some ways. With all that said, I think that The Good Dinosaur should still be embraced for the good material it has. It's a flawed film without a doubt, and it does have some pretty painful moments to sit through, but it also has some brilliant moments and scenes that make you appreciate the genius of Pixar's work. In my opinion, I think it's a pretty good film to study for those wanting to go into the world of filmmaking, particularly animation. It should be looked at more to see what works about a film and what doesn't work. So overall, it's not a great Pixar film, but it certainly has some great Pixar moments. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the new style I decided to do for it because I wanted to experiment in a way. And be sure to let me know in the comments what you think of the new style as well as your thoughts on The Good Dinosaur. Until then, this is the Animated Antic, and take care.